Today, as I am most days, I'm rocking what I like to call the YouTube mullet, which is of course business on the top, sweatpants on the bottom. Pro tip, if you can't see my lower half, there is a 90% chance I am not wearing real pants. Today, I am continuing to work through my backlog of reviews, which is only getting worse. I'm pretty sure that once I'm caught up, I'm gonna go back to doing monthly wrap-up videos, because if I don't have a schedule, I just let myself slack, and it's a bad time. These are all books that I read in like May and June. That is how bad it has gotten. But it is a really good pile. Several of these are probably going to end up on my end of year best of list, so there is that at least. Alright, number 1, Ines of My Soul by Isabel Allende. One nice thing about deciding to read more diversely is that it gets you to read stuff that's been on your shelf forever, because it was written by a woman of color from Chile. And it is a work in translation. Because, like, this has been on my shelf for years. I bought it at a Borders. That is how long I've had it. So this is historical fiction, but it is about a Spanish woman named Ines Suarez, who was a real person who was very instrumental in the colonization of what is now Chile. So this was a strange one for me because looking back, like, it was really good, and also I think it's very important and people should read it. But like the actual experience of reading it for me was kind of a slog, particularly the first half or so. You know that thing that people say when they're trying to sell you on a nonfiction book and they're like, oh yeah, it's nonfiction, but it reads like fiction. This is weirdly fiction that reads like nonfiction and like kind of dry nonfiction. There were a couple points where I was like, you know what? I kind of wish I was just reading a nonfiction book about this subject. Like, I think that might be more interesting to me. But yeah, it really picked up for me in the second half, and I would definitely recommend it. It has definitely made me more interested in reading more Latin American fiction, which is an area where I have to admit I am not well read at all. And it was really cool to read historical fiction from like a time and place that I'm not super familiar with. Like, that was really neat. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this if you're looking to pick up some Latin American fiction. Next up is Slaughterhouse-Five by Vonnegut. This is all about Billy Pilgrim, a man who has become unstuck in time. And this novel shows scenes from his life mostly centered around his time serving in World War II, and particularly the firebombing of Dresden. So I keep a Google Doc of notes for the books that I am reading, so it's easier for me to write reviews. And my only note for this one is, what the fuck do you even say about Slaughterhouse-Five? It's one of those books that everyone has talked about so much that you're just like, what can I bring to the table here that's new? I will say that the thing about this novel for me is that I think by any sort of like objective metric, it is the best of the Vonnegut novels that I have read. Like, I totally get why this is the one that's always taught in schools, and this is one that I would recommend if you are an aspiring writer, because, oh, this is just like masterfully crafted. Like, the structure of this is just insane. It's told non-linearly, which is so hard to pull off. And non-linear storytelling is one of those things that seems like it's really easy because it sort of comes across as just like jumbling all of the scenes in a random order, but no, like, you've gotta really know your shit to do that well. But like, to get back to my point, like, this is capital B brilliant, but like, it's just not my favorite of the Vonnegut novels that I've read because I felt far less personally connected to it than I have some of his other stuff. I think a lot of it is just that I am not super into war novels. Like, I love Catch-22, and that's kind of it. I also love this. It's not that I don't love this. Like, I'm pretty sure I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads. Like, I do totally love it. It's just that I am personally more into some of Vonnegut's other stuff, because that's just where my tastes lie. But yes, you should read Slaughterhouse-Five. It is amazing. Next is Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day by Winifred Watson. So this is a novel from the 20s, and it's all about a governess who is at the end of her rope money-wise, and so she takes on this job assignment, which is basically her last chance. and gets like swept up into the crazy life of her new client. And oh my god, I love this. Like, I think we all have our genres that are what I call bread and butter genres. Like, these are the things that we love and like we continuously go back to. And one of my big ones is like very light, slightly frothy English comic novels from the first half of the 20th century. So this is perfect for me. It's just this lovely, charming little Cinderella story, and it's delightful. I feel like this would be a really nice thing to read like when you were sick. It's that kind of a book. And it is a very light novel, but I would also consider it a very feminist novel. Like, it's just all about ladies, like, talking to each other and helping each other out and being awesome and banding together, not let dudes fuck with them. Really, the only negative is that there would periodically be these moments of anti-Semitism, which, like, I suppose are not that surprising given the time period in which it was written, but are, like, were very jarring considering how generally progressive the rest of the novel is. It doesn't happen very often, but I thought it was worth mentioning because I think, like, knowing that it's coming probably helps soften the blow. But yes, I very much recommend this. This is super good. Next is The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde by Junot Diaz. So this is the coming-of-age story of a kid named Oscar who is Dominican and growing up in Washington Heights, and who is also a giant nerd. And I loved this. This is so good. I cannot believe how long it took me to read this. I knew I was gonna love this when I read the epigraphs, one of which is like this really beautiful poem about the immigrant experience, and the other of which is a quote from the Fantastic Four comic. So I was like, yes, sold. I am on board with this. I think the thing that I really like about Junot Diaz is that his writing just doesn't sound like anyone else. Oh man, a few days ago, somebody posted an interview with one of the guys on the Nobel Literature Committee, and they asked him what the chances were of an American winning, and he was like, not very good, because Americans don't bring in any translated works, and they're obsessed with MFA programs, and so all of their writing sounds the same. And some people were getting head up about it, but like, he's not wrong. And like, that is just not an issue that you run into with Junot Diaz, which is nice. So yeah, this was awesome. Like, the story was great, the characters were great, and I love Junot Diaz's authorial voice. Like, this is great. You should totally read it if you still haven't. Next is Bel Canto by Ann Patchett. So in this one, there is a birthday party being thrown for a Japanese businessman by the government of an unnamed Latin American country. So it's a party full of diplomats and business people, and there's a performance by the Japanese businessman's favorite opera singer. And then the party is overtaken by a group of terrorists and a hostage situation ensues. And so the bulk of the novel is about that hostage situation. This one is really hard because, like, I loved it. This was so good, but I feel like I can't really talk about why I loved it without getting super spoilery. So I will just say that this is super tightly constructed. And also, this was just like such an emotional roller coaster in a way that I was not expecting. Like, when I finished this, I just like had to close the book and stare off into the middle distance for a while. It was one of those. This was the first Ann Patchett that I've read, and I am so looking forward to her other stuff now because this was amazing. And the last thing is The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. This novel is all about Junior, a Native American teenage boy who lives on a reservation, but enrolls in a predominantly white high school nearby. Coming of age and an examination of identity ensue. This is a book that gets challenged a lot, which is ridiculous because there's a handful of swear words and like 2 paragraphs about jerking it, so I continue to be unimpressed with book banners. I probably talk more about jerking it in an average day than this teenage boy talks about it in the entire novel. Ridiculous. But yeah, this is great. Like, it's funny and sad and about characters who you don't see often enough, and like pretty much everything I want out of my YA. It won the National Book Award, guys. You can't argue with that. Like, really, my only complaint is that I feel like it could have stood to be longer. Like, I wanted more of it. pretty much. So yeah, this was really good, and I am very much looking forward to reading Sherman Alexie's adult stuff now. So that is everything. If you have read any of these, I would love to know what you thought in the comments below, and I will see you soon. Bye.